Hello to the viewers watching today. We'll talk about traders trading the markets. Please be advised the following is for educational purposes only. I don't want to spend much time on my introduction, so let me jump right in. Points extracted from the book Trading the Zone by Mark Douglas. Who is Mark Douglas? Mark is a trading coach who has worked with traders for close to 18 years. The following information will put you right in the zone to trade. Note the following info can also be used in everyday life. At the most fundamental level, there is a problem with the way we think. There is something inherent in the way our minds work that doesn't fit very well with the characteristics shown by the markets. Those traders who have confidence in their own trades, who trust themselves to do what needs to be done without hesitation, are the ones who become successful. They no longer fear the erratic behavior of the market. They learn to focus on the information that helps them spot opportunities to make a profit rather than focusing on the information that reinforces their fears. While this may sound complicated, it all boils down to learning to believe that you don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money. Anything can happen. Every moment is unique, meaning every age and outcome is truly a unique experience. The trade either works or it doesn't. In any case, you wait for the next edge to appear and go through the process again and again. Fundamental analysis attempts to take into consideration all the variables that could affect the relative balance or imbalance between the supply of and the possible demand for any particular stock, commodity, or financial instrument, using primarily mathematical models that weigh the significance of a variety of factors: interest rates, balance sheets, weather patterns, and numerous others. The analyst projects what the price should be at some point in the future. In a sense, technical analysis allows you to get into the mind of the market to anticipate what's likely to happen next based on the kind of patterns the market generated at some previous moment. As a method for projecting the future price movement, technical analysis has turned out to be far superior to a purely fundamental approach. It keeps the trader focused on what the market is doing now in relation to what it has done in the past, instead of focusing on what the market should be doing based solely on what is logical and reasonable as determined by a mathematical model. On the other hand, fundamental analysis creates what I call a reality gap between what should be and what is. The reality gap makes it extremely difficult to make anything but very long-term predictions that can be difficult to exploit even if they are correct. In contrast, technical analysis not only closes this reality gap but also makes available to the trader a virtually unlimited number of possibilities to take advantage of. The technical approach opens up many more possibilities because it identifies how the same repeatable behavior patterns occur in every time frame, moment to moment, daily, weekly, yearly, and every time span in between. Moon and Earth. Just reach out and touch it. The moon. Trading successfully feels the same way. On any given day, week, or month, the markets make available vast amounts of money to anyone who has the capacity to put on a trade. Since the markets are in constant motion, this money is also constantly flowing, which makes the possibilities of success greatly magnified and seemingly within your grasp. I use the word seemingly to make an important distinction between the two groups of traders. For those who have learned how to be consistent or have broken through what I call the threshold of consistency, the money is not only within their grasp, they can virtually take it at will. I'm sure that some will find this statement shocking or difficult to believe, but it is true. There are some limitations, but for the most part, money flows into the accounts of these traders with such ease and effortlessness that it literally boggles most people's minds. Prime example of what I'm talking about. Trading is inherently risky. To my knowledge, no trade has a guaranteed outcome. Therefore, the possibility of being wrong and losing money is always present. So when you put on a trade, can you consider yourself a risk taker? Trading presents us with a fundamental paradox. How do we remain disciplined, focused, and confident in the face of constant uncertainty? When you have learned how to think like a trader, that's exactly what you will be able to do. Learning how to redefine your trading activities in a way that allows you to completely accept the risk is the key to thinking like a successful trader. Learning to accept the risk is a trading skill, the most important skill you can learn. Yet it's rare that the developing traders focus any attention or expend any effort to learn it. When you learn the trading skill of risk acceptance, the market will not be able to generate information that you define or interpret as painful. If the information the market generates doesn't have the potential to cause you emotional pain, there's nothing to avoid. It is just information telling you what the possibilities are. This is called an objective perspective, one that is not skewed or distorted by what you are afraid is going to happen or not happen. Now, I am not suggesting that we don't need some form of market analysis or methodology to define opportunities and allow us to recognize them. We certainly do. However, market analysis is not the path to consistent results. It will not solve the trading problems created by lack of confidence, lack of discipline, or improper focus. When you operate from the assumption that more or better analysis will create consistency, you will be driven to gather as many market variables as possible into your arsenal of trading tools. But what happens then? You are still disappointed and betrayed by the markets time and time again because of something you didn't see or give enough consideration to. It will feel like you can't trust the markets, but the reality is you can't trust yourself. So, what is the solution? You need to learn how to adjust your attitudes and beliefs about trading in such a way that you can trade without the slightest bit of fear, but at the same time keep a framework in place that does not allow you to become reckless. Natural attractions are simply those things about which we feel natural or passionate interest in. Ours is a big and diverse world, and it offers each of us a great deal to learn about and experience. But that doesn't mean each of us has a natural or passionate interest in learning about or experiencing all there is. There is some internal mechanism that makes us naturally selective. For something to be out of balance, there has to be something that's in balance or in equal proportion in the first place. That something is the relative degree of correspondence that exists between our inner mental environment and the exterior environment where we experience our lives. In other words, our needs and desires are generated in our mental environment and they are fulfilled in the exterior environment. If these two environments are in correspondence with one another, we are in a state of inner balance and we feel a sense of satisfaction or happiness. If these environments are not in correspondence, we experience dissatisfaction, anger, and frustration, or what is commonly referred to as emotional pain. To operate effectively in the trading environment, we need rules and boundaries to guide our behavior. It is a simple fact of trading that the potential exists to do enormous damage to ourselves, damage that can be way out of proportion to what we may think is possible. The risk of loss is unlimited. The market is like a stream that is in constant motion. It doesn't start, stop, or wait. Even when the markets are closed, prices are still in motion. There is no rule that the opening price on any day must be the same as the closing price the day before. Nothing we do in society properly prepares us to function effectively in such a boundaryless environment. Consistent losers do almost anything to avoid accepting the reality that no matter how good a trade looks, it could lose without the presence of an external structure forcing the typical trader to think otherwise. He is susceptible to any number of justifications, rationalizations, and the kind of distorted logic that will allow him to get into a trade believing that it can't lose, which makes determining the risk in advance irrelevant. The market will not take you out of a trade unless you have the appropriate mental structure to end a trade in a manner that is always in your best interest. You can become a passive loser. This means that once you are in a losing trade, you don't have to do anything to keep on losing. You don't even have to watch. You can just ignore the situation and the market will take everything you own and more. The unlimited characteristics of the trading environment require that we act with some degree of restraint and self-control, at least if you want to create some measure of consistent success. The structure we need to guide our behavior has to originate in your mind as a conscious act of free will. This is where the many problems begin. It usually takes a great deal of pain and suffering to break down the source of our resistance to establishing and abiding by a trading regime that is organized, consistent, and reflects prudent money management guidelines. Now, I'm not implying that you have to reconcile all of your past frustrations and disappointments to become a successful trader, because that's not the case, and you certainly don't have to suffer. Traders who are not ready to accept responsibility for the outcomes of their interpretations and actions who find themselves in a dilemma. How does one participate in an activity that allows complete freedom of choice and at the same time avoid taking responsibility if the outcome of one's choices are unexpected and not to one's liking? The hard reality of trading is that if you want to